Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and my unboxing and card making with Simon Says Stamps April 2025 card kit. As always, disclaimer, I'm on the design team with Simon Says Stamp. The kits are sent to me. I don't have to do these unboxings or anything like that. They're just fun. And like always, I'll put a link to the kit, to the subscription option, and then whatever else I decide to use to make my cards. And yeah, there's info on like you can buy just the kit, like one-time purchase. You can subscribe. That's all explained with the subscription. And then things that are available separately. Choices. We like choices. So, and then of course, last disclaimer, my links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a kickback from that. No extra cost to you, no hidden fees, anything like that. And that's what helps pay the bills, all the things. So that's it on the disclaimers. Let's switch this down. There we go. And take a look at this kit. So this is the Butterfly Blossoms kit. Whoop. There we go. Is that everything? I think so. Yes. Candy, as always. You get me with the candy. So there's the candy. There is the Butterfly Blossoms stamp set. This is a 6x8 set. This is really pretty. This is very pretty. I like the style of this. One of the options or add-ons, there is a coordinating wafer die set for this. That's separate. It's not part of the kit, but I'll put a link to it. And then I was like, it's not a layering set, but all of these are labeled like F1, F2, like floral 1, floral 2, butterfly 2, 4, but there's, that makes sense. There's a coordinating little stencil set for this, so that's kind of fun. So I assume, oh yeah, they're labeled. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. See? So it's got little etch lines, and then each one is labeled. It would still be pretty simple to like line these up anyway. But yeah, each one is labeled, so you can just match the packaging. So this is F1, so that would go with this one. So it would just, yes. I like that. I like it. I've talked about this a lot. I love coloring images, just watercoloring, markers, all the options. But I do like having stencil options. I don't know. It's therapeutic. So you get a layering stencil set for it. And then there's the stamp set. And then there's pattern paper. This is Paper Rose, Bees, and Butterflies. Oh, this is pretty. This is pretty. I need more of it. This is really pretty paper. Ugh. Yeah. Isn't that pretty? It's all double-sided. This is lovely paper. I really like that. Paper Rose has been making some really nice papers. So there's that. There is, a little paper bag envelope. I need to get more of these too. I think I have a few in my stash, but I need to get more of these. This is, yeah, just Simon's A2 craft envelopes. I get asked a lot about like when I post photos, when I'm mailing things out, like where I get my envelopes from. Most of them are from Simon Says Stamp. I just like theirs because they're self-adhesive. And this one's nice. It's like paper bag. I like it. It's got an envelope. There's this Simple Stories Color Palette Worm washi tape. These are pretty too. Look at all the little patterns. Those are cute. And yeah, they go nicely with the pattern papers. Those are pretty. So you get those. There is Collage Medium Matte, a little bottle of this stuff. The thing to remember with Collage Medium Matte, this stuff dries really, really quickly. Just if you've never worked with it, it does dry like fast, which is also kind of nice sometimes. So you're not sitting there waiting for the glue to dry forever. So you get a little bottle of that. This is, I have a full size one, but you'll get with the kit, I think it's a 1 ounce size. So like a smaller bottle, it'll still be a ton of product of the Texture Paste Sparkle. So it looks kind of white, but this dries pretty much clear. And then it just has a really pretty sparkle in it. So you'll get a container of that. And then There's this pack of Tim Holtz Serendipity collage paper, which that's where the collage medium matte works really nicely, but you could use kind of your adhesive of choice. I've never really worked with collage paper. I curate it and collect it, but it's pretty and it's very, very thin. That's why you could like, you know, Mod Podge with it and all that. Like, it's just very thin, you know, and pretty. Like, there's a stamp set, a Tim Holtz set that has that. So you get all of these pretty papers, you know? They're so pretty. It's a whole pack of them. All of these, that's another, I recognize that image. That's another Tim Holtz stamp. Ephemera. All of these are just, I like that one too. These are just gorgeous. Okay. I want to look at all of them. I think we get doubles of a lot of these. That's nice too. That always makes me a little happier if there's like doubles. Because it's like, okay, I can play with one and then I still have another, you know, in my stash. Anyway, yeah, it looks like you get 2 of each design in this pack. I'm sure if I had looked at the back of it, it would have said that. Just a semi-transparent. 30 pieces. 15 designs. So yes, 2 of every design. So that's cool. I'm not going to bother like trying to put all that back in there on camera. So you get all that. And then there is Simon's Honey cardstock. This is 100-pound cardstock. This is pretty. I'm not sure exactly how it'll show up on screen. In real life, like on my screen right now, it doesn't quite look like it's supposed to. In real life, it is a very like kind of honey mustard color. It's really pretty. So you get one of those, and then you get a Nina Solar White 110-pound cardstock, which is also good for card bases. And yeah, that is the kit in a nutshell. And as usual, as I'm filming this and talking and saying these words, I have no idea what I'm going to make. No idea whatsoever. But thanks to the magic of video editing, y'all don't have to wait for me to figure something out because I'm going to splice it all together and we will immediately get into making a card or two using elements from this kit. So let's just see what happens. So I took one of the pattern papers that came in the kit and I fussy cut it. One, I used some pattern paper. That's a good thing. I talk about this a lot. I hoard pattern papers, curate it, collect it. We all know. But when it comes in kits, a lot of times I feel a little, I don't know, better about using it. Y'all, I'm just trying to like explain the weirdness that goes on in my brain space. Anyway, I used some of it. This is really pretty pattern paper, and I was struggling with like what paper to use, because then it's like, oh, I've only got the one. Wah. But then this one, I was like, because since it's 6x6 and I always make A2 size cards, I was like, this isn't going to fit, etc. And then I was like, wait a minute, if I trim these out like this, then I can do 2 cards, you know, and have this pretty floral border. So I just used my scissors and fussy cut. And I've done many, many videos over the years showing and explaining fussy cutting. But as you can see, even with it sped up, I moved the paper more than my scissors. And with this, it was actually super easy. Like I, left out a little border, but because it's pattern paper, it's not as obvious, if my cuts aren't perfect, things like that. So I done that. And then I took some panels of smooth white cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss these images because I'm going to stamp them with the Simon's VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And as you can see, this ink is very crisp. And this ink, I always heat emboss it most of the time. When I'm stamping it onto like smooth white cardstock and color cardstock, it takes a bit longer to dry, which one, I don't have patience for. And even when heat set, for me, I manage to find ways. Again, I've also mentioned this in videos. I have very oily skin. Even if I heat set inks like this, like pigment inks, things like that, I manage to smear it. It just is what it is. So after all the years of just constant oops with this ink, and I refuse to do other inks, they're there's this one, and then the other one I like is the like Altenew Obsidian. I just heat emboss them. It's worth it. Yeah, the little extra step of heat embossing, it's worth it. So if it doesn't smear for you, wonderful. You don't need to heat emboss it. But for me, it just saves me all the aggravation. So I stamped the couple images with that ink and then clear heat emboss them. And then I'm going to stick them to a grip mat, and I'm going to use the little coordinating stencils to fill these in. And I'm liking it. I'm liking that Simon is doing more coordinating stencil sets. Do I personally need them? Not necessarily. I do love to color. I will never not love coloring, but there is a ridiculous satisfaction I get from stenciling. Plus, unless you're really careful with your coloring and like it takes more effort to get that very smooth, blended look, it's so much easier using a stencil. And I love it. So for me, it's just about options. And then the other side, and I've talked about this, that I really love is for a lot of people, coloring is either intimidating or very difficult, especially if you have shaky hands, things like that. So I love that there's now like so many stencil options because it makes it so much easier without having to be like a frustrating experience, because who wants that when you're crafting? So I used some positively saturated inks. And then just my go-to little scraps of Post-it tape. This one's getting near the end of its life. I talk about it. I use these pieces until there's nothing left. And I just stick them to the top of my die cut machine. And once they're full of ink or completely covered in dust and don't stick anymore, that's the only time I'm going to rip off a new piece of Post-it tape. So I use the Post-it tape to mask off some of the areas because, these little openings are pretty close to each other. So that just saves me from, getting ink everywhere. And then just little blending brushes, blend those inks, and it's done. I love it. I love it. It's so cute. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with the second one. Just line up that stencil. Super, super easy. And then I end up using all the inks I used. I'll have listed, but I used butter and honey. Those are my yellow shades. So butter's the lighter shade. Honey is the darker one. For the greens, I'd used cabbage and kale. And on that first image, I used flannel with a very light hand. That little, really light gray on the little like dandelion heads. So for these ones, I did the same thing. Started with the butter color and filled it in. And then I'll just take a little bit of the honey. And again, just a really light hand, just to add that little extra bit of depth more towards the centers of these. And in the process, managed to get like ink on the side of that panel. No idea how I got green ink on my fingers, but I'm not too worried about it because that's going to get covered up with a pattern paper. This is also why I add splatter most of the time to my projects. I didn't do it this time. I got distracted when I was making these. I had meant to add splatter to these. Now that I'm like editing this and voicing it over, I had meant to add splatter. But I got distracted and I forgot. Splatter would have looked great, but not the end of the world. I always make up for it next time. Anywho, with this one, after removing the stencil, I grabbed some cocoa ink and one of the round detail brushes and just lightly went over just the very centers of those flowers. Again, just to give it that little extra something, something. And then I took some of this honey cardstock. Legit, I really like this color. I already ordered extra packs. I've had them sitting. I haven't, you guys, I need an assistant. I need more hours in a day. I had them sitting behind other things. I didn't even realize I had more of this cardstock. It's pretty. It's a good heavyweight and it's just a really nice color. Like I said in the intro, it's more like a kind of a honey mustard color and I like it. So anyway, I stamped a couple sentiments from the set with that Nocturne ink. Clear heat emboss those as well. That's where I, for whatever reason, the Nocturne ink, and well, just pigment inks in general, because pigment inks the pigments sit on top of the cardstock more. That's why it takes longer to dry. But just the nature of color cardstock, I legit smear no matter what. I could leave these overnight, and they'd be completely bone dry. I would still manage to smear it. So, like I said, clear heat embossed the sentiments. One of them I just trimmed into a little sentiment strip. The other one I fussy cut. If you get the coordinating die set, you're set. I didn't have it, so I did all fussy cutting for this, which was all fine. I also took just a scrap of vellum from my stash, and I stamped the butterflies from the set with clear embossing ink on it. And these I'm white heat embossing, which makes them really subtle. I thought about I could have stamped it in that Nocturne ink and done clear embossing, made them a little more obvious. Or also what would look really pretty is like heat embossing these with gold embossing powder. But I went a little subtle, white heat embossed them. And again, because I don't have the wafer dies, I just fussy cut these. It didn't take very long. And the thing to always remember if you're heat embossing on vellum is embossing powder melts incredibly quickly on vellum. Just always just be paying attention, because not only does it melt very quickly, but vellum will burn significantly faster than cardstock ever would. So it's just a thing to always keep in mind. But heat embossed it, did my thing, and then just used my little scissors, and same thing. I moved the paper, and in this case the vellum, more than my actual scissors. Also, my hands are flailing all over the place because I was on a video call for a lot of this when I was filming, and here's complete. I talk with my hands. I do, which is funny because 99% of the time, none of y'all can see that. Like, even when I'm filming my intros for you guys, my hands are all over the place and I'm like pointing and all the things, and none of you can see it. It's just a habit. Anyway, after I'd fussy cut, it's now time to assemble my card fronts. So I ended up deciding also to use some of the washi tape that came in the kit, which you do need, and I've talked with this, you need to use your washi tapes. This is another supply that is not, like, if you want to collect it, sure. Just don't hold on to it with the hopes that, maybe you'll use it in a few years, sort of a thing. Washi tape does not last. There's just something about the adhesive of it that it will literally dry out. I used to collect washi tape, with the whole intention of using it, and I can't even tell you how many rolls I've grabbed and I go to use it and it just shreds because the adhesive has like dried out and fused everything together. So yeah, use your washi tapes. I tend not to get it anymore, but since it came in the kit, I was like, oh, these are pretty. So adding them like this, and I'm actually going to use it on the insides of the cards as well. It's also a pretty way to like add to envelopes. That's what I used to do with it a lot, was I'll put it on the back of the envelope, like after I've sealed the envelope up, and just put washi tape over the flap just to add a little extra adhesive. Plus it's pretty. So I added that one strip on the one card front. This one, it wasn't going to work, so I didn't add any washi tape. And the sentiment I popped up with just some thin foam squares to give it dimension. And then for the butterflies, I just put the glue right behind where the body is and then leave everything else. And then after the glue is fully dried and they are secure, I gently kind of curled up the wings a bit to give it that little extra dimension, but it doesn't create any bulk. So adhered those into place. And then on the inside of the cards, I added more of that washi tape, just like so, and just trimmed off the ends. Although there have been times in the past where I just wrap the ends around and they show on the back of the card, which doesn't bother me at all. And actually, I think it looks kind of cute. But this time I just trimmed it with my scissors. And then, like I said, you could add a little bit to the envelopes as well, just to get everything, kind of matchy-matchy. It'd be cute. So then I took the same florals and I lined them up in my MISTI, and these I stamped with the butter ink, so the lightest yellow shade, and that was it. That just gives it that extra something, and then the insides are done. So once those were done, for the card fronts, I am going to adhere these to the card bases with Simon's Big Mama foam tape, because that'll give everything, again, a little extra lift, a little extra dimension, not a whole lot of bulk, and yeah, get all the tape into place, and then I'll pop these onto the card fronts, because, did I show that? I had trimmed these card fronts down. They're not fully A2 size. They're like 4 by 5 1/4, so just slightly smaller than the card bases. So I'm going to pop these into place onto both of the card bases, and then once I've got the card fronts adhered, I dug through my bling stash, and I pulled out, was it the butter? Positively Saturated Gems? No, Sunbeam. I pulled out the Sunbeam Positively Saturated Gems, which are just a bit more yellow, which fit, obviously. So, sprinkled a few of those on there. So, I didn't do the splatter, but I did do the bling. So, I'm not completely insane. We're all good. We're all good. So, put a few of these into place, and then I'll just pick them up with my little embellishment wand and adhere them down with little dabs of Craft Tacky glue. And like I always say when I'm using these, although this time the lighting did kind of pick up more, because these gems look sometimes just ugly on camera because they're technically reflective, but my camera being straight down, they'll just look like little weird blobs. But it's when you tilt them in the light that it's like, oh. So yeah, see right there. Once you tilt them in the light, then it's like, oh, these are pretty. Anyway, that was the cards. These were fun. And yeah, my little vellum butterflies, and then a bit of washi tape and some pattern paper and super easy stenciling. Love it. So, like I mentioned in the intro, links to all the things are in the description box below. You can check out the kit, the subscription, everything individually, etc., etc. It'll all be below. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. I very much appreciate it. And I will be seeing you all very soon in another video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!